Bitcoin has just printed a massive red candle on the 4-hour time frame after failing the key level we talked about in yesterday's video. Today we are looking for the key levels of support and resistance that indicate for us where the price is headed next. We'll be looking at the higher time frame first to find clues, working our way down to how we think the price is most likely to behave in the next 24 hours. Welcome to Bitcoin Escape Plan. If you enjoyed the analysis, then leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you want a personal reminder of the levels that matter most every day in your email, then subscribe at bitcoinescapeplan.com. Let's get into the video. So first of all, I watched this 4-hour candle drop. So we got to a point where I could have better information essentially for this video. I didn't want to start recording while we're in the body of it. I wanted the body of that candle to close, and now we can make better decisions moving forward with our analysis. So let's start off with the daily time frame first. So yesterday we closed at 62.6K critically after a failure of the daily SMA. So anyone who's been watching the channel for the last week or so, we've been talking about this continued interaction with the daily SMA. And just paying attention to it. We did have to pay attention to a reaction to the 65.8K Fibonacci pivot on the daily time frame. Now, subscribers already know I don't talk about that one quite as much as I talk about 64K and a few other key targets that we will go over in this video. But again, the reaction to the daily SMA is what has caused this downside pressure that we are seeing continue to open up to the downside. So how low can it go now? Well, that's where we want to go to the higher time frame to look for our clues. So the first most prevalent part of this, I would say, again, anyone who's on the channel already knows this, we've been talking about this range from about 64K to 76.3K since we entered it in the end of January, early February. So functionally speaking, we've been caught in the middle of this range for the majority of the time with a few wicks below and above that range. As you can see, we even closed directly in that range, even though we wicked above it and below it. So the fact that we have a body of a candle significantly below it is certainly a bearish signal. That is an indication to us that we are more likely to start spending time in this range than we are in this range. So what I believe is occurring at the moment, since we have seen weakness at a couple of these key targets, which I'll go over in just a moment or so, what we're seeing overwhelmingly is we need confirmation of whether this range is done, whether we are able to get back into this range, or whether we are done and in fact now we are stuck chopping around in this range, which just broadly speaking, I do think that it is the case. So we are now stuck in this range until probably closer to the middle or the end of September. I'm not going to waste time too much on thinking about what's going to happen in September in today's video. I will of course be releasing daily videos then as well. So what I want to focus on more is what are the likely indicators that we would have of strength or resistance in this region, essentially. Now again, I don't really hear many other people talking about this the specific way that I talk about it, but how I talk about it a lot on this channel, everybody knows I talk about 70.3K being just as important as 64K and 76.3K, because it's roughly the midway point. Not exact, but roughly the midway point, and we have confirmation of that level being important on, I believe, the weekly and daily time frames, separate from the monthly time frame. So if we take that as kind of like a middle point, essentially, that means when the price is above 70.3K, it puts pressure on a retest of 76.3. It doesn't guarantee that the price is going to raise higher, but it puts pressure in that direction on the price. Just the same as if it is below 70.3K, it puts pressure on the price to retest 64K. So what is that important level for over here in the range that we have entered? Well, luckily the numbers are a little bit more similar. So it's basically 54K. There's a couple of reasons why it's more likely 53.5K, but basically 54K, just for, easier syllabic resonance. We're just going to say 54K on this channel. So that's the midpoint that we would expect in this range to apply by the same physics, essentially, where if we are above 54K, that puts pressure towards 64K. If we are below 54K, that puts pressure towards 44K. So what I believe is happening, and I have talked about this for the entire month of June, so we're trying to get confirmation of whether we need to test that midpoint or not right now. So when I had originally talked about the lowest price that I believed we could see in June, which I'm not married to. I don't need us to see this price, but this is the lowest that I can believe, is about 53.5K to 54K, because I'm still anticipating a lower high to form in the month of July. That may be invalidated any moment, if we just continue to drop lower. But again, I do think that with a candle this significant, it's a much lower bar for July to be a quote-unquote bullish month, or for it to be a green candle. Again, anyone on this channel knows we have between 3 and 4 green candles in a bear market year. We have 2 already, meaning we have 1 to 2 more. So I think July is the most likely candidate for the next one, primarily, again, just because of how large the body of this candle is. The price is currently at 60K on the nose. Not that hard for July to close above that and be considered bullish. However, I do anticipate that price will be below 76.3K. I don't know exactly how high, and I think it really depends on this move here. When I was previously talking about a touch of 54K, I was assuming that was going to happen earlier in the month of June. It is, from the historical analysis that we've gone over a couple times on this channel, it was the last week of June that we saw the absolute lows of that range, and I will go over that a little bit later on the weekly time frame. But functionally speaking, I didn't want to base all of my trade on that. I was exposed to the downside. I'm still exposed to the downside. I'm up, I think, almost 80% on that trade, which puts me at, how does math work? I think 240% for the last month, which is sick, obviously. Pretty stoked about that. You can watch at the very end. I'll post the video of how I do that, the advanced Bitcoin trading course. Hopefully it helps you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below. But regardless, I did that specifically because I had reason to believe that we had one more opportunity for lower, essentially, in the month of June. It wasn't guaranteed, but I could see from the chart that it was also a significant possibility. Again, just based on, I've been doing this for a while now, since deep into last year when I was posting on Threads and going viral for some of the claims I was making at the time. I'm just basically copying and pasting what was happening in 2017 and 2018 onto the chart until it breaks, and it hasn't really broken in a meaningful way. Obviously, the absolute top was at a little bit different time period, and I gotta be honest, guys, I'm much better at calling bottoms than I am at calling tops. I can understand how the bottom mechanics work. The top mechanics, everybody is prone to have their emotions affect them. You know what I mean? I had written down 130 to 150 on a piece of paper in 2022, and I had every reason to believe that I was correct about that. So I didn't really need to completely shift my position when we were at 126. And I am of the opinion that you shouldn't sell your Bitcoin. So, unless it dramatically improves the quality of your life. All right, stop rambling. So if we look at this over here on 2018, this is specifically why I believe that July will be a bullish candle. I do not need it to be above the body of June's candle. That would actually put it quite higher than it is now, just because of where we dropped for the month of June. That would put price in July above 73.6K, which is not impossible, but you got to imagine that. You got to imagine how dramatic that's going to be on the chart, and how many people are going to get rinsed in that case. If we do, now granted, we're not done with June yet. We still have some time left in June, so we could start to close the body of this candle closer to the 64K Fibonacci pivot, and therefore a little bit easier for the price to make that move in July. But if that's not the case, and if we start July from down here essentially, and that's what is fated to happen, is we're to head at least in the direction of 70K. I think it really, the closer we get to 54K now, the more likely that it may just be, let me see what this would be, about 70K, so about a 30% move. Goddamn, I wouldn't mind a 320% trade. That'd be pretty nice. So that would be the baseline anticipation for July, and I don't think it's unreasonable, especially if they can get their act together before the Congress recess, where they go get their juice boxes and go to Europe for a month. When they're able to make a decision on the Clarity Act and actually get it passed, or at least more clarity around whether or not, no pun intended, around whether or not they will actually pass it in its current iteration, or whether they're going to have to kick it down for another year or so, which I don't think is going to happen. JP Morgan Chase makes less money if that happens. BlackRock makes less money if that happens. So I don't think that's going to happen personally. So again, what are we looking for right now? We're looking for if Bitcoin is going to head towards 54K in the month of June. I don't think that it is impossible, just based on, again, our previous analysis of the 2018 chart leads us to believe, and I can go into that in more detail. I'm actually going to go over to the weekly time frame. It's a little bit easier. Guys, if you're enjoying this daily format instead of me just posting when I'm able to, please go ahead, leave a comment down below. Let me know what is helpful to you in these videos, what I could get better at. Happy to hear the feedback. All right, let's get into it. 2018 on the chart. So this, again, this is the basis of our analysis. This is how we've been able to call things so accurately the last couple weeks. So going into June, we had weakness. That weakness continued all the way until the last week of June. The last week of June, we start to rise up. Now, the low actually was in the middle. So again, that's kind of why I was assuming we had basically, like last week's videos, anyone who was here already knows this, I was primarily talking about, you know, the likelihood that we would need another retest of 60K versus the acceptance that we had already gone past it. Oh, we just broke 59.8K. I am watching on my phone, separate from this chart that I'm looking at. So critically speaking, we're at a very similar shape in the chart to 2018. So 2018, our low over here was 5,890, and you basically add a zero to that, and that's where we were in February. So again, I'm just using that as the basis for my analysis. I don't need that to play out exactly as it is, but a lot of times, guys, it does. The May high was almost identical, so week apart. So it was actually the April high in 2018, but our high in May was literally like May 5th, May 6th. So it's within a week, essentially, of the price move. And it was the same here for, I think our drop into June happened a little bit more quickly this time. It happened towards the end of May. However, it's largely the same shape, and the shape is what we actually want to focus on in relation, again, to our larger signals, which are things like an interaction with the weekly SMA, an interaction with the Bollinger Bands. That's what we want to pay attention to as like events that don't happen quite as often, specifically on the higher time frames. On the higher time frames, we're not going to be sitting on the monthly SMA or the weekly SMA all the time. It's going to be novel and important when we have interactions with them, the same way as the Bollinger Bands. So this is obviously, typically, anyone on the channel already knows, this would typically be an indication of a short, but you don't want to open it when it's like that, you know, or you got to be very patient if you decide to take a tweezer top kissing candle one right there and anticipate, like doing that in a bull market year, you're crazy to short the price until Q4 in a bull market year. It's very silly. I don't know why you would be doing that. So again, basis of our analysis is that we were going to continue to drop into June, that was a high probability that we would see another test of 60K. And I'm really glad that I did that, because again, I'm up, whatever, like 80% on the decision to re-enter the short that I was already in. So now I basically have paid myself for, originally that short I would have been, I think, 220% in profit, and I closed it at about 160% in profit. I'm now up on the same exact trade. I had another 80%, so whatever, like 240%. So slightly more than I would have made the initial time, where I capped my profits and then I re-entered because of the signs on the chart. So what I'm looking for now is, again, I believe that we are going to start rising into the month of July. There's a couple narratives that make me believe that as well. They really need to get the Clarity Act passed before the August recess for the Senate or Congress. This is a Bitcoin channel. I don't speak federal stuff, you know what I mean? But they need to get it done before that happens. I believe that the price will rally on that, like it always does with news, because something will happen, you know, after this major move is done. Which again, I don't need us to break lower than we already are. Again, as I'm recording this, we're at 59.7. So that's lower than we were in February. So it's important just to pay attention, guys. Oh no, I did it again. Dear God, pray for my ability to zoom properly on this computer. Dear God, hold. Okay, guys, I think we're okay. My computer is freaking out though, so if this video randomly ends, I apologize. So 59.7K The lowest that we've touched earlier this month was 59.1, I believe. And I mean, on this chart, it looks like we're sitting on that at the moment. So that is something we're going to want to pay attention to, is does it need to break that? Because I actually think that's a indication of strength at that point. Because again, it's in alignment with the 2018 chart where we still were expecting to drop down into the end of the month for June before we start to see a reversal into July. And that reversal in July is not immediate. You know, it did not happen right away. I believe it started to happen by the middle of July, but by the July 4th extravaganza or whatever, the fight on the White House lawn, all of that like energy and hype that will probably push a lot of money into stocks. I would assume it's not going to do anything crazy for Bitcoin. It might just get us back to the 60 or 64K level. So that is something important to pay attention to, is we're not in a strong position for Bitcoin right now, but a show of further weakness below 59.1K there is actually indication that we are going to need to reverse for a bit, because otherwise we would just continue to break down. We don't have any news to confirm that. This time in 2022, we had Celsius, Voyager, and BlockFi all going bankrupt with millions of people's money, myself included. So that's what was going on during that time to tank all this. The Clarity Act getting delayed is not the same thing. That's major corporations in crypto are the ones that are, you know, getting their balls gripped essentially, not people. So while that is important and while that will dictate what ends up happening for the bank policy moving forward, and for you moving forward if you choose to custody your stablecoins with JP Morgan Chase and friends, like you need to keep that in mind, that's what they're doing right now, is they're squeezing the crypto companies so that the banks have more favorable terms. These stablecoins are not FDIC insured. That is not beneficial to you. We are essentially becoming the demand for the US dollar. The treasury demand is no longer apparent in places like China, Brazil, Russia, Japan. Without that, the US dollar collapses. So again, we the people are going to be the ones who are footing the bill for that, and you're not even going to get FDIC insurance for it. It's a joke, everybody. This is why we buy Bitcoin. So that's what we have to keep in mind, is the more weakness that we have now, the more that we're going to tie hope to the narrative of the Clarity Act. What's going to happen when the Clarity Act passes or doesn't pass? This is both. This is both, guys. If they pull us along the whole month and it doesn't pass, what's the price going to do? The price is going to sell off. If we pull it the whole month and it goes up into July, as I anticipate, and then it gets passed, okay, cool. The money doesn't flow in until the end of the year, where JP Morgan Chase and everybody else is done making their partnerships with the crypto rails, with the companies that they want to be in a less favorable position when they actually start the dynamic. JP Morgan Chase took a $900 million slap on the wrist for manipulating the gold market from 2008 to 2016. Do you think that they care? Do you think that they care about manipulating the Bitcoin market? Grow up, stop being a child. No children are allowed to watch my channel, all right? So that's what we're waiting for right now, is either, I'm gonna roll today's video, like and subscribe. That's what we're waiting for, is confirmation of breaking below 59.1K, which may literally happen right after I post this video, or we will see enough strength to start our move into July. Now I'm open to both. I'm not going to scroll back in the video, or I'm going to fuck up the chart again. But it was not, I believe that we broke to like 5,700 or a little bit lower in 2018. And again, the initial drop was 5,893. So it's not uncommon for us to see multiple retouches of the equivalent low in the month of June, and still for it to then recover into July. This is a pretty common pattern, even just not just in a bear market, like in other years as well. Pretty normal for there to be an inverse relationship between June and July, where if one is bullish, the other is bearish, etc., etc. Partly, I believe the yen carry trade also factors into this. The Bank of Japan raised their rates, I think, again. So that's part of it. I don't really care. What I care about is the price fundamentals, which again, we've gone over this entire video. So before I get into the daily and what's going to happen in the next 24 hours, I normally talk about this way earlier in the video. My apologies, I was on a ramble today. We got to look at the actual indications from the chart that we have of weakness. And there are multiple. So over here, now, first of all, I was able to call this to 83K back in February because of the anchored VWAP. If you don't know what that is, go over here, click on courses. I explain it in more detail. I was able to call that 83 to 86K was going to be where we would have a reaction. And I'm very happy that that was correct. Now, in the same token, we have broken below the bottom band of the downtrend anchor VWAP, which again is not a sign of strength. It's very early in the cycle, so there's nothing really preventing us from snapping above it again. But I would imagine later in the year that we are going to be properly disconnected from this. And it will probably no longer be relevant to me by about Q4. By about Q4, I will probably delete this and have to draw another one. We will see. And I kind of take it as it comes. I prefer this guy. This is the Elder VWAP that I use from 2011. This one gives you less information during the actual part of the bear market, but it gives you very, very clear information about the bottoms. So again, I'm not going to zoom back too far. I'm going to mess up my computer. But functionally speaking, we would expect the price to continue to drop down towards this level, break it, and then continue higher while maintaining this sort of like bell shape, this expanding bell shape once we get to the actual bull market years. And we're still kind of seeing an expansion right now. We haven't really seen a complete leveling off. Once we see more of a significant leveling off, at a certain point, the price will interact with it. So where's the price at the moment? With that level, 38.7K. Now, anyone who is following the channel already, you know I've said the same level for a while now. The lowest that I can believe the price is going to go in Q4 of this year, or possibly January of next year, is about 34 to 39K. Just based on the support that we have in this region, between 32 to 35K, that being the midpoint of the previous monthly candle closes. So there's some evidence that we could anticipate this the same way. So this guy that's 71.2K, roughly the candle close for there. Let me get the exact. The close is at 71.3K. So let's just call it 70K for easier math. But the midpoint of that would be right around 35K. So again, that's why I'm basing that as the lowest I can believe the chart is going to go, is it's going to want to test the midpoint of the most important psychological levels on the chart. The most important psychological levels on the chart are, in my opinion, 70.3 or 73.8K. Again, subscribers know I talk about that one all the time. 100K and 126, of course. So we have already we're seeing the narrative tested on whether or not 50K is going to be relevant. Again, as I've already described for the rest of this video and most recent videos, I do not believe that the price will break below 53.5K in the month of June. And because I believe that July will be a lower high, therefore, I do not believe it's going to break below there in July either. The earliest I would believe that the price will break below 53.5K, probably August. Potentially not until September. Like we may just kind of, again, stick in the range to the midpoint until September. But that's my baseline assumption, is that we will stay in between the midpoint of these two ranges for a while before we're really able to break down lower. I do think that that will be towards the end of Q3 into Q4 where we're going to see the major drop. And I think that's going to be weakness in the Fed. The Fed is going to be forced to print, something to do with the bond rates. This is a Bitcoin channel. I'm not going to pretend that I understand all that perfectly. So what are we looking at in the next 24 hours? This has been a very rambly video. You guys are saints for listening to me. The 60K is the pivot that's forming on the daily time frame. Again, I don't really care about daily ones quite as much. You know, a child with a crayon could tell you that 60K is important just by looking at the chart. So that's what we're looking for right now. Again, the daily candle, the body, is currently below the lows of this earlier drop in June. So that will again be interpreted as a very bearish signal, and we still have plenty of days left. You know, we still have whatever, like a week left essentially in June, where it could continue to drop. You know, it could continue to stay disconnected from the daily SMA. And quite frankly, there's nothing really preventing this drop from continuing into July. You know, like I don't want to say that I'm like ready to flip bullish immediately just because we've broken below 59.1K. I may start looking for like an ETH long during that time, just to, you know, maintain my Bitcoin bearish bias as long as possible. And then I will need to flip bullish on Bitcoin, and I probably won't catch that entire move. Like, I probably won't long the exact bottom, but I will imagine that wherever we break down here below 60, again, whether that's 59 or 57, I would imagine by the time we're on our way back up to 60, that at that time I will have enough information to long it. And guys, again, like, you don't have to be absolutely perfect with this trading strategy. I'm up 240% on two trades in the last month. I mean, come on. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Find something that works and stick to it. What works is a Bitcoin chart. So in the next 24 hours, we got about 7 hours left on this candle close. What information do we have? We are below the bottom band of the Bollinger Bands, which means we will have to snap up eventually. Now, we have just seen this period of compression for a while start to open to the downside. So that actually, again, we could see a full week of the price dropping now. So that's why I'm prepared to just leave this this short open. This short may end up paying me more than the last one did, which is crazy because my entry is not immaculate for this one. Like, I wouldn't say any of these trades are professional, but still 240% kind of speaks for itself. Whatever. So in the next 24 hours, we want to pay attention to specifically, where does the price close in relation to these other candles? Does it close below the wicks, which again, this guy is 59.1K, this one is 59.5, and really anything below 60K is going to be interpreted as fairly bearish because these guys closed at 60.8 roughly. So again, if we have anything that's below 60, the price is going to interpret that as very bearish, and we'll continue this downside momentum into the rest of June and possibly even into early July. I don't really need it to be exact. I'm going by the levels. So again, the lowest I believe that we can head is about 53.5K. I'm not married to that. If it's clear that we have, look at this guy. This is important. So this is I believe the bottom band of the Elder VWAP. We have not had an interaction with it yet. We had a test over here at the beginning of the month. We didn't break it. So that's kind of what we're looking for now, is we would anticipate this to be really strong, a strong reaction actually, if we don't break it. Like, if we don't break it, the price is going to be like, oh, okay, cool. We don't have to break it. We can go back in the opposite direction towards the next important one, which granted is a lot higher for the Elder VWAP. We are not going to 78K. We will get rejected way earlier than 78K. But again, that's what we would anticipate that as significant strength off of not needing to touch it after almost touching it before. Whereas if we break it, still probably the same outcome, that we will head back, but we would stick around in this region a little bit longer, as opposed to, again, a display of strength being basically above 59.1K. If we show weakness at 59.1K, the price is going to want confirmation of lower, period. It will not be happy, you know. Be like throwing a bleeding animal into a school of sharks. Like, they're not going to ignore the animal. They're going to do what sharks do to the animal. So that's what's going to happen to Bitcoin, is if we show weakness at 59.1K, I hate to break it to you, but it is going to break significantly lower. Again, I don't think lower than about 53.5K. And it could just be as low as 57, and then the price turns around. You know, the bottom band of the Elder VWAP is at 58.1. So maybe it shows strength at that, you know. I'm not married to that. Like, this is not a concrete wall. This is a magnetic force. There's nothing preventing the price from breaking it. And we're just kind of going based on the sentiment of the individuals pressing buy and sell in order to anticipate that reaction. So this guy, again, we didn't need to touch it then. So we had every reason to believe that the price was going to head to our next most important level, which I haven't really talked about in this video, but at 67.5K. 67.5K is the point of control on the chart. That is the place on the chart with the most volume that people press buy or sell. Super important. We got rejected off of it, you know. I was talking about that basically as it was happening on that day. That's how I knew to re-enter short, because you got to think about this psychologically. This is when the most human beings on planet Earth, the one that we live on, have pressed buy or sell. So when the price got rejected at that level, the most psychologically important level that like there's actually a bulk of human beings who clicked the buy or sell button on that, just saw that get rejected, you know? So that was more than enough for us to see the price get drawn back down to whatever the most important level is next, which in our instance was 60K. So 60K is where we really needed confirmation, especially after we lost 64. We stayed in 64 for a while. I really debated closing my short at that time. Super happy that I did not do so. And now again, we're just waiting for the next most important level for us is about 59.1K. Again, I'm not going to scroll back because I'll fuck up the chart, but 59.1K is also the closing candles of the first rises in 2021. April and May, I believe, are right around there on the monthly time frame. Super, super important. Also, you got to follow channels where they can do that from memory. At least for analysis, maybe not for trading, but that's what we want to use that as kind of like our psychological anchor for the price at this level. Why is the price returning to this level? It's returning to this level specifically because of the mental weight of anyone who was buying at the top then, and just the emotions that were tied to the market at that time. You know, I don't remember exactly. Well, actually, I do remember. I was up a lot of money at that time. This is not a plug for my book, but I did write a book about this. This is when I learned how to leverage my credit in order to buy more Bitcoin. I turned about $11,000 into $70,000 in a 6-month time period, and it only cost me $233 in interest to do it. That's not a flex. That's just math. Go read the book at bitcoinescapeplan.com/courses is where I have that one. But I was able to leverage my credit in that instance and just watch it rise, and I didn't really know what was happening. Like, I didn't know that the price was going to get rejected off of 64. I had no clue. I was just more focused on making sure that I paid down the debt so that I didn't owe any money and that the assets belonged to me, which again, as I said earlier in the video, Celsius took it all from me anyways. But that's kind of what we're waiting for now, is the same. We need to return to the same psychological moment then. So in April, May of 2021, what was happening? People were stoked about how high Bitcoin was rising, how high all of the altcoins were rising, and then what happened? They fell off a cliff. So we are testing the same emotional resonance at that time in the market to the opposite side. Then we were testing 59K as strength. We were testing it essentially as resistance. Whereas now we're testing it for support. So this is 5 years ago, essentially, and we didn't have perpetual contracts then, but if we think about it from moving forward, how politicians and other powerful people are going to use that, that's what they're going to use it for. You can leave a perpetual contract open for 5 years, and as long as you have the money to pay the taxes, you don't have to close it. So that's how they're going to trade, is they're going to trade off of broader emotional swings of the chart, and that happens primarily because of how the price closes. Like you can learn a lot on the chart, guys, if you just understand the monthly closes. Like, that's going to tell you a lot that you need to know. So what we're looking for in the next 24 hours is, do we have confirmation of strength or weakness at 59.1K? If we have confirmation of strength, excellent. That's a very good sign for us not needing to react to the bottom band of the elder VWAP. If we show weakness there, we're probably going to have an interaction with the bottom band of the elder VWAP. Now, we don't have to stay there for long. Again, this 67.5K interaction here, we were not in it for long. Those are 4-hour candles. We were in this for a total of 8 hours. So it could very well be the same thing, where whether that drop happens within the next 24 hours, or if I'm just repeating myself again in a video tomorrow talking about the same thing, it doesn't really matter. You know, we will see that reflected on the chart specifically because of this interaction, which again, if you don't have the anchor VWAP set up already, it's about 58.1K. If you want to set up an anchor VWAP, go over here underneath forecasting under volume-based anchored VWAP, click it, drop it on the most relevant candle, which for us is either the 126 all-time high in October, and then I use the elder VWAP. I'm the only content creator I know that uses the elder VWAP this way, where I have it drawn from the lows in 2011. So this one tells me how the price will behave moving down. This tells me how the price has behaved moving up. They are both super important, and they make my life way easier. So that's it for this video. Go watch the advanced Bitcoin trading course after this. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can go down, link in the description. If you just want me to help you understand analysis better, if you want me to help you and understand trading off of your analysis better, I can now do that quite well for Bitcoin. So let me know. Let's get you going. All right, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go check your email. Have a wonderful day.